at this stage of a man's life, he may have the desire to experience a deeper connection with a woman. So if he was to look back on his life, he may see that he has been able to connect with a number of women at an intellectual and very physical level. But that could be as far as it goes. And he may also find that when he has wanted to emotionally connect to a woman, it hasn't taken place. And he could believe at this point that is simply because he hasn't met the right one. And once he does, this will all change. Now, if in a little while this was to take place, so he was to meet a woman who he was sexually attracted to and had a good intellectual connection with as well, and he is starting to feel things, he may still find that he is unable to emotionally connect to the woman. And he could find this strange, as could the woman, because he will have met someone who he appreciates on many different levels, but he won't be able to experience this emotional connection. And the reason for this is that when he is with a woman, he could have the tendency to emotionally shut down, so he will be estranged from his feelings, and this will mean that he loses touch with his body. So his main point of attention could be his mind, but what is going on down below, at least when it comes to his feelings, will be a mystery. He may still be able to experience sexual desire or sexual desires for the woman, but that could be about it. And naturally this is going to confuse him, and as I said, the woman as well. It's going to be strange because he will want this to happen, but it's not going to happen. And again, at this point, he could believe that he's simply met the wrong woman. And this is something that could play out a number of times over many years, or perhaps in 1 year. And what this can show is that the reason why he is unable to connect to his feelings around the woman, and why he has a tendency to shut down, is because he doesn't feel safe around women. And so it's not going to matter that he might be physically stronger than the woman, and there's not much chance of the woman causing his life to come to an end. That's irrelevant. That's not going to matter. And what this can show is that he didn't have a very loving and harmonious relationship with his mother when he was growing up. He may have been brought up by a woman who was abusive verbally, physically, emotionally, and because of this, a number of associations were laid down when it came to women. Because although his mother won't represent all women, when he was very young, the particular would have become the general. So his mind would have generalized and seen all women as a threat. And this can be seen as a very primitive defense mechanism, but back then it would have been put in place automatically to keep him alive, and he wouldn't have been thinking. His intellect might not have even been very developed at that point, but he certainly wouldn't have been thinking, well, if I respond in this way, this is going to screw up my chances of getting close to a woman as an adult. That wouldn't have taken place. It would have simply been about surviving. And through shutting down at this point would have been a way to protect himself from his violent mother. And this may mean that his father was not around, or perhaps his father may have been just as abusive, so he wouldn't have had anyone to turn to. And so many years would have passed, and as an adult, most likely he will have no understanding, or he would have forgotten about, his mind will have completely forgotten about what took place. And so he will have what is known as an emotional flashback. So he will respond in a certain way, and then he will shut down. And he could also find that he spends a lot of time shut down anyway. And so it's not going to be a big difference when he is around a woman, because he's generally shut down. And so through not having this connection, it wouldn't have been possible for him to join the dots, so to speak, and to see why he is unable to be in his body, to feel safe, and to emotionally connect to a woman because of what took place very early on. So of course he will no longer be a child, and what took place will be over, but his body will still be in this traumatized state, and he will have a number of beliefs and associations that will prevent him from being able to be fully present and to connect to a woman. So if you can relate to this and you are finding it hard to emotionally connect to a woman, and this has been taking place perhaps for quite some time, or perhaps you've just come to see this, and it may show that you have some unresolved trauma in relation to your mother and your father that needs to be dealt with. And as your nervous system starts to settle down, and you can see that while your mother may have been very unstable and abusive, not all women are the same. So if you can relate to this, you may need to reach out for the assistance of a therapist or a healer.